Hello, everyone. Welcome to Learn English podcast.
How to make your brain think in English. Learn English through podcast.
Thinking in English is one of the most powerful skills you can develop if you truly want to master the language. And if you are a young person who dreams of speaking English fluently, then you must understand that the secret is not only about memorizing new vocabulary or repeating grammar rules, but about training your brain to operate directly in English. Because when your brain begins to think in English naturally, you will no longer need to translate every sentence from your native language. You will no longer feel slow or stuck when you want to speak, and you will no longer waste time searching for words. Instead, English will flow from your mind just like your own language. And this ability will make you faster, more confident, and more connected to people around the world. But the question is, how can you train your brain to think in English? And the answer is that it takes daily practice, consistency, and the right use of technology and environment. Because the way your brain learns languages is through repetition, exposure, and habit. So if you surround yourself with English, if you feed your brain with English every single day, if you use the tools available to you, and if you stop depending on translation, then slowly your mind will switch. And one day you will realize that English words are appearing in your thoughts without effort. And that is the exact moment when you know you are becoming fluent. So let us go deep into how to make this transformation happen, because this is not just about language. It is about changing the way your brain works. And once you learn to think in English, opportunities for study, travel, work, and communication will open for you like never before. The first step in making your brain think in English is immersion. And immersion means surrounding yourself with English in every part of your life, because your brain adapts to the language that it hears and sees most often. So if you fill your environment with English, your brain will start treating it as normal, as natural, and as necessary. And the good news is that technology makes immersion possible even if you live in a place where no one speaks English, because you can watch videos, listen to music, play games, and follow social media entirely in English. And every time you choose English content over your native language, you are training your brain to recognize patterns, sounds, and structures. And the more often you do this, the stronger your English thinking becomes. And I want you to imagine this. If you watch a movie in English with English subtitles, your eyes and ears are working together to absorb the language, and your brain is learning to connect meaning directly to English words instead of translating them. And if you repeat this every day, soon you will notice that when you see an object, the English word comes to your mind before your native word. And that is a clear sign your brain is starting to think in English. And it all begins with immersion, because the brain is like a sponge. It absorbs whatever you give it, so you must give it English as often as possible. The second step is to stop translating in your head. And this is very important because translation is the biggest barrier that keeps learners from thinking in English. And many young people feel stuck because when they want to say something, they first think of the sentence in their own language, then try to translate it word by word into English. But this process is slow, stressful, and often incorrect because languages are not just direct translations. They have different word order, expressions, and meanings. So if you want to think in English, you must train yourself to go directly to English without translation. And the way to do this is by practicing with simple words and sentences that you already know. For example, if you see an apple, don't think, "This is an apple," in your native language first. Just say apple directly in your mind. If you're walking to school, instead of saying in your language, "I am walking to school," tell yourself silently in English, "I am walking to school." And if you do this with small daily thoughts, your brain will get used to producing English first, and translation will slowly disappear. And I want you to understand this clearly. Your brain is like a muscle, and if you keep giving it the habit of translation, it will always depend on translation. But if you train it to skip translation, soon it will operate only in English, and that is the goal. The third step is to talk to yourself in English. And this may sound strange, but it is one of the most effective ways to make your brain think in English, because your brain listens to your own voice. And when you practice speaking English to yourself, you are reinforcing the language inside your mind. And you don't need anyone else to do this. You can practice anywhere, at home, while walking, or even silently in your mind. For example, when you are brushing your teeth, you can think in English, I am brushing my teeth. When you are making food, think, I am cooking rice. When you are looking at the sky, think, the sky is beautiful today. And by doing this every day, you are turning ordinary moments into English practice. And this is exactly how children learn their first language. They describe what they see, hear, and feel, and slowly their brain builds natural connections. And if you do this in English, you are training your brain to process life directly in English. And the more you do it, the faster you will see results. And soon, English will no longer feel like a foreign language. It will feel like part of your thinking. Another powerful step is to use technology to train your brain, because today you have access to tools that past generations could only dream about, and you should not waste this gift because apps, podcasts, AI chatbots, and online courses are all designed to make English part of your daily life. And if you are serious about thinking in English, you must use these tools every day. For example, you can chat with an AI in English whenever you want, practicing conversations, asking questions, or telling stories, and the AI will respond instantly, correcting your mistakes and giving you new vocabulary. And the more you practice, the more your brain learns to communicate in English naturally. And this is important because practice builds confidence, and confidence removes fear. And when fear is gone, your brain starts to use English without hesitation. And tools like Grammarly can help you when you write, because they not only fix mistakes, but also explain why, which means you are learning directly in English instead of thinking in your native language. And if you use apps like Duolingo, Memrise, or Babbel, you can play with English in a fun way, building vocabulary and grammar while feeling like you are playing a game. And this is how you trick your brain into learning faster, because the brain learns best when it enjoys the process. And technology makes learning enjoyable, interactive, and unlimited. Another important step is to expand your vocabulary, because the more words you know, the easier it is for your brain to think in English. And when you don't know enough words, your brain gets stuck and wants to return to your native language. But when you know many words, you can express ideas directly in English without translation. And the best way to build vocabulary is not just by memorizing lists, but by using words in context. And technology helps you do this through flashcard apps like Anki or Quizlet, which use a system called spaced repetition to remind you of words at the perfect time so you never forget them. And if you combine this with reading English books, articles, or even social media posts, you will see words in real sentences, which helps your brain remember them faster. And the more vocabulary you learn this way, the more natural English becomes in your thoughts, because your brain will always have the right word ready when you need it.
But vocabulary alone is not enough, because thinking in English also requires practicing full sentences. And this is where shadowing comes in, which means listening to native speakers and repeating exactly what they say, copying their rhythm, pronunciation, and intonation. And this is so powerful because it forces your brain to match English sounds with English words instantly, without translation. And if you practice shadowing every day with podcasts, YouTube videos, or audiobooks, you will soon notice that English sentences start forming automatically in your mind. And when that happens, you are no longer just learning English. You are living in English. And that is the key to fluency. Another crucial method to make your brain think in English is to surround yourself with English in your daily life. And when I say this, I mean literally every part of your environment, because your brain adapts to the language it sees and hears most often. And young learners have a unique advantage because your brain is still flexible and can learn faster than adults. So if you make English a constant part of your life, your brain will gradually begin to operate in English without effort. And there are many ways to do this, starting with simple actions like changing your phone, computer, and social media accounts to English. So every time you scroll, click, or type, you are forced to think in English. And at first, it might feel uncomfortable, slow, or even frustrating because your brain is used to your native language. But this discomfort is exactly what signals that your brain is adapting and learning. And if you stay consistent, after a few weeks, your mind will start recognizing patterns, understanding meaning faster, and forming sentences automatically in English. And another way to surround yourself with English is to label objects in your house with their English names. So when you see a door, you tell yourself door. When you see a chair, you think chair. And even when you see a cup or a table, your brain is practicing English without you needing a teacher. And this is exactly how children learn their first language, by seeing and naming everything around them. And the same method works perfectly for second language learning if you apply it consistently. The next strategy is to think out loud in English every day, because your brain doesn't only learn by listening, it learns by speaking and expressing thoughts. And when you narrate your day in English, you are actively training your mind to operate in the language. And this is extremely powerful for young learners because it creates a habit of thinking in English instead of translating. So, for example, when you wake up, you can say to yourself, I am waking up now. I will brush my teeth. I am going to have breakfast. And when you go to school, you can silently describe everything in English. I am walking to school. The sky is blue. I see my friends. And by doing this consistently, your brain starts building automatic connections between English words and real-life objects or actions. And slowly, your thoughts will appear in English first, before your native language. And the more you speak to yourself in English, the faster your brain will stop relying on translation. And eventually, English thinking becomes natural, effortless, and automatic, which is the ultimate goal for anyone who wants to be fluent. Another very effective method is to practice with technology and AI, because in the modern world, we have tools that can simulate real conversations, provide instant feedback, and adapt to your level. And this is something previous generations never had, so young learners should take full advantage of it, because AI can give you unlimited opportunities to practice without judgment or pressure. And one of the best ways to use AI is through chatbots like ChatGPT, which can respond to your questions, correct your mistakes, and even suggest better ways to express yourself in English. And by practicing every day, even for a few minutes, your brain is receiving continuous English input, producing English output, and reinforcing neural pathways that make English thinking automatic. And if you combine this with speaking exercises, writing exercises, and vocabulary practice, your progress will accelerate tremendously because your brain is constantly exposed to English, and exposure is the key to fluency. And the more you expose your brain, the more English will become the default language of your thoughts. Another critical step is reading extensively in English, because when you read, you're training your brain to recognize words, phrases, sentence structures, and ideas directly in English. And this is far more effective than translating word by word, because reading helps your mind understand context, infer meaning, and think logically in English. And for young learners, the best approach is to start with content that interests you, such as comics, stories, novels, or blogs. Because when you are motivated and curious, your brain absorbs information faster and retains it longer. And if you read every day, even just 15 to 30 minutes, your vocabulary will expand, your grammar will improve subconsciously,
and your brain will naturally begin to think in English, and you can even combine reading with listening by listening to audiobooks while following along with the text, which strengthens both listening comprehension and reading skills. And this creates a powerful synergy that forces your brain to operate in English continuously, reinforcing neural pathways that eventually make English thinking automatic. Another powerful method is listening to English constantly, because your brain learns by hearing, and the more you listen, the more it recognizes patterns, pronunciation, and rhythm. And young learners should take advantage of podcasts, YouTube videos, music, and audiobooks because they expose you to real English used in real situations. And when you listen every day, your brain starts processing English sounds directly, connecting them to meaning without relying on translation. And this is exactly how children learn their first language, by listening constantly and forming internal representations of words and phrases. And if you shadow what you hear, repeating sentences exactly as native speakers say them, your brain strengthens its ability to think in English while speaking. And the more you practice listening and shadowing together, the faster you will internalize English. And eventually, your mind will begin to formulate thoughts, opinions, and internal monologues in English without effort, which is the ultimate goal for anyone who wants to be fluent. Another important tip is to write every day in English, because writing forces your brain to produce language actively. And when you write in English, even if it's just a diary, a message, or a story, you are training your brain to organize ideas in English, think logically, and express yourself clearly. And when you combine writing with correction tools like Grammarly, your brain learns from mistakes immediately, understanding why a sentence should be formed a certain way. And by consistently writing in English, your brain starts building automatic connections between ideas and English words. And soon you'll find that your internal thoughts, when writing, come directly in English. And this habit also supports speaking, because what your brain can write, it can also speak. And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes to think in English first, and translation becomes unnecessary.
Another essential technique is associating images and experiences directly with English words, because when you learn English by linking words to images, actions, or feelings, your brain doesn't need to translate, it just understands. And this is extremely effective for young learners because visual learning strengthens memory. And when you see an object, action, or event, immediately thinking of the English word instead of your native language trains your mind to process English naturally. And you can do this with flashcards, picture dictionaries, or simply observing your surroundings and silently naming objects in English. And over time, your brain will automatically retrieve English words when encountering anything familiar, which accelerates thinking in English and reinforces the habit of bypassing translation. Another key step is to set up English-only thinking moments, where you dedicate certain periods of the day to only think in English no matter what. And this forces your brain to adapt, because if you consistently challenge your mind to operate in English, it has no choice but to comply. And these moments can be simple, like during your morning routine, during a walk, or before sleeping, silently narrating your actions and thoughts in English. And even if you make mistakes, it's okay, because repetition and consistency will strengthen your brain's ability to think in English automatically. And eventually, your mind will start forming English sentences and ideas without you needing to remind it, which is exactly the state you want to reach, where English becomes the default language of thought, expression, and understanding. And this is the difference between someone who studies English superficially and someone who truly lives it. If you want to make your brain think in English and truly become fluent, the first and most important step is immersion, which means surrounding yourself with English in every possible way so your mind gets used to processing it naturally. And you can do this by changing your phone, social media, and apps to English,
Watching videos, listening to music, podcasts, and audiobooks in English, reading stories, comics, and articles that interest you, and labeling objects around your home in English so your brain connects words to real-life things. And at the same time, you must stop translating in your head because translation slows you down and interrupts thinking. Instead, start practicing by describing everything you see, hear, and feel directly in English, narrating your actions, your feelings, and your daily routine, even silently to yourself. And combine this with speaking exercises, shadowing native speakers, and writing short paragraphs or diary entries in English, which trains your brain to organize ideas and produce sentences without relying on your native language. And use technology wisely, including AI chatbots, grammar correction tools, language apps, and online courses, which give you instant feedback, suggestions, and unlimited practice opportunities. And as you build your vocabulary, focus on connecting words to images, actions, and emotions instead of memorizing translations, because your brain learns faster when it associates meaning directly with English. And set dedicated English-only moments during the day when you force yourself to think, speak, or write in English for a few minutes or more. And over time, with consistent daily practice, repetition, and exposure, your brain will start forming thoughts, internal conversations, and problem-solving strategies directly in English, making the language feel natural, effortless, and automatic. So that one day you will realize you are no longer translating in your head, but simply thinking, speaking, and living in English. And when this happens, your confidence, fluency, and ability to communicate with people all over the world will skyrocket because your mind has fully adopted English as a tool for thinking, learning, and expressing yourself. And this transformation begins with small daily habits, consistent practice, and the smart use of technology. And it is completely possible for any young learner willing to commit to this journey, because the more you feed your brain with English, the more it will grow, adapt, and start thinking in the language naturally. And the sooner you start, the faster your mind will become a true English thinking machine. And every effort you make, no matter how small, is a step closer to speaking English effortlessly, thinking in English instantly, and living your life with the freedom to communicate confidently anywhere in the world.